guys, it's Brick Building Babe here, and today I'm going to continue my investment analysis series, and we're going to look at the UCS Razor Crest, and I'm going to give you an evaluation of supply, demand, what the market's telling us, and try to provide my best insight on how I think this set will do post-retirement, which is scheduled to retire at the end of 2025. So take everything I say in here a grain of salt. This is not financial advice, and anything and any decisions you make regarding your investment strategies is of your own accord. So take that as you will. But I will be giving you my opinion on this set. Will I be investing? And what my final thoughts are on this. So, according to Brick Fanatics, the UCS Razor Crest is in fact well, not in fact, it may be retiring in 2025. As we can see, it came out in 2022, like Q3, Q4 of 2022. So if it does retire at the end of 2025, that is just over a 3-year shelf life, which from a shelf life perspective, that actually seems pretty decent. I think part of the challenge of the set and part of the reason is maybe potentially there is lower demand with it being very specific to the Mandalorian show. Great show, absolutely great show, but um, it's not like an iconic Millennium Falcon that has been around since the original trilogy, or at least to my knowledge. You're talking to not the biggest Star Wars fan here, so if you want to correct me in the comments, feel free to do so. Because, yeah, I'm not huge into the Star Wars lore. But I can still make an evaluation on an analytical side of the market. So, looking at the Razor Crest here, we can see it's a 6,187 piece set. It is targeted towards the adult market. It has 5 minifigures and is available for $600. Um, so you can see it has this little display plate with a minifigure display stand. Looks like this is a sticker, which is an absolute bummer, but they've been doing that a lot lately. But you can see it's a pretty solid looking build. Of course, it's a lot of gray. That's very typical for a lot of Star Wars, but I think it looks really well done. Like from the side, the opening, the features. It's a pretty cool display piece. Um, but do I have one? No. Will I ever have one? Probably not. Um, it's just too big, a little too expensive for what we want, and what my fiance wants, who's much more into Star Wars Lego. Um, so that's just our personal preference. But I also like to check out brick sets. So brick sets really interesting, gives you a lot of good details about the sets. And what's the most interesting here is the collection. So if you create a brick set account, you can say what you want and what you currently have. And this is a really interesting ratio. We can see that 6,000 members own the set and 4,000 want it. And this is a really high number from what I've seen on other sets. And even cheaper sets, people want it for like 2,000 want it. But this is a really high ratio of own to want sets. Just to give some perspective, if we look at the Venator, the UCS Venator, of course, that only came out in 2023, so it has a lot less time on the market, but we can still see the amount of people want it is about the same as the Razor Crest, and the amount that own it is actually lower. Um, and I find that really interesting. I think part of that has to do with the price point, this being $650, and the UCS Razor Crest retailing for 600, but typically selling less than that, especially in the last year, um, has a really big impact as to why so many people own the set. So if we do look here, it says there are 4 minifigures and 3 unique to the set. When we look on Bricklink, it actually has all 4 minifigures, and we can look and identify which ones are unique and how much they are valued at. Grogu, not unique, absolutely love him, super cute. We have Quill, I don't know. Wow, he is a very solid minifigure. I am very surprised. All right, so Currently, the market for him, this is across all Bricklink sellers, but in the past 6 months, 134 people have bought it, 120 are listed. So at that rate, this entire supply, quote, should run out. Of course, it depends on the price, but we can see that most people are trying to buy it around $40. So let's just estimate he's a $40 figure. Then we have Din Djarin, the Mandalorian himself. He looks about the same, but I would say he's more like a $35 minifigure. Of course, you could argue you can get more out of it, but I like to look more on the cheaper end to get a real feel of, what people are actually paying, because you can see here it's listed average at 38, and that means that this supply is going to run out first. So I kind of take it with what the market's telling me, and they're telling me it's around $35, $40. So we can argue he's a $40 figure again. So 280, two figures are $80, and then we have the Mithril. I actually had one of these and sold him on Bricklink. Picked him up from a big lot. I would say he's around $30. So if we look at all those minifigures again, that brings us to 40, 40, 110. And that's actually not that bad. $110, better than I suspected, I will say. So, this, according to Brickset, is a LEGO exclusive. However, it does seem, if we look on Amazon, it has been available since the beginning of 2023. Um, So when it comes to exclusivity, I get a little confused because of the way that things are marketed. UCS sets I thought were supposed to be exclusives, but when we look on Amazon, they are available. So let's look on Amazon. So when we look on Amazon, be mindful. When I say they are available, I mean they are sold and shipped by Amazon. You can see right now that's not the case. And I'll show you in a second how I know that it was sold and shipped by Amazon other than at this exact moment. But you can see here that this is a FBM fulfilled by Marketplace, something like that. But it's an Amazon Marketplace, basically like a more official eBay. And you list the specific item, and you can see it's being sold for $5.25. So it's going for, it says 12% off, but that's $75. It's pretty hefty value discount. But where we can find out whether or not Amazon actually sends them themselves is if we look at Keepa. So Keepa will give you records of the entire lifetime of the product and whether or not in orange it was sold and fulfilled by Amazon, whether or not, and at what price the buy box is at. So if you're unfamiliar, this is the buy box. And sometimes you'll go here and you won't see anything. And that's because either Amazon's not selling them themselves, or they don't have a good alternative supplier that they want to promote, essentially. So what we see here is once this joined Amazon, it was selling for 600 very consistently, even through this may yeah, it looks like this is getting close to Black Friday. And right before the new year, went down to almost 420, which is a seems like a really good deal. But then after that, it never really recovered. We don't have sales volume on the free version of Keepa, so I can't provide any insight onto that. But what's very interesting is, after these discounts, Amazon and other sellers could not quite reach that 600 price point until the beginning of 2024. But even then, or not beginning of 2024, the like August of 2024. And even then, it was only about a month that it sustained that health. So if I had to imagine, um, the first year they were able to get away with a high price because it was new. I don't even remember when the last Mandalorian show came out, but I feel like it was much closer to this time frame. But then after like that initial hype went down, people started to value the set less and have less desirability. So that's just my kind of thinking. And you can see here in 2025, it is still saying around that 525. So I would imagine that, let's say half the people who've bought the set bought it at full retail and half bought it at an average price of maybe 500 or so, which is a whole $100 off. If we look at the secondary market on eBay, we'll see very similar sellings. We see as low as 450 on a few. Some listed at 550, but nothing here is really being even listed or tested for over over the $600. You can see here there's $1,000. They probably are just putting that there so that if someone does happen to see it or if post retirement it does shoot up, they're going to be one of the first ones. That's my only thought. But most of the listings, are in that 500 range. Um, so that's something to consider about the aftermarket that most people buying it right now are buying it at 500. That's going to make it more competitive to be able to get higher returns. If everyone buys it at 500, it's going to be more competitive to list it at 700 because some people are going to take the smaller wins and list it at 556, something like that. So I think the supply is going to be pretty high. And you can see when we look at Keepa, so when we look at Keepa, these white regions tell you when the item was actually out of stock on Amazon, and it was barely out of stock. And when it was out of stock, there wasn't so much demand for it that people were able to get away with prices over MSRP. Um, so supply seems pretty high. And when we look at what we can actually buy, um, pretty much everything is either lego.com or the secondary market. You'll see that Amazon's not even listed here on the Google Shopping. And that's because it's not an Amazon at this moment in time. It's not an actual Amazon item. So if we look at the final evaluation of the UCS Razor Crest, these are where all my main categories fall. So from a shelf life perspective, I actually think it's um, pretty decent, maybe just over 3 years. And I'd say anything in the 2 years is pretty solid. And I also believe that a lot of the really big sets, if I'm not mistaken, I am relatively new to the Lego investing community, but if I'm not mistaken, I thought a lot of the larger sets stay longer. Um, but this might have just over a 3 year shelf life. I think the demand is actually a lot higher than I suspected, given Brickset, given another piece I didn't mention is that when we look on Amazon, it says 300 watt in the past month. That's actually pretty solid numbers for a set that's over $500. Of course, we were in the holiday season, sort of within the last month-ish, so those numbers might be inflated, but you have to remember this isn't most people are only finding this potentially available um, on Lego. I don't know, making a stretch conclusion there, but I actually think the demand is not bad. I think the fact that the minifigures are exclusive and are worth over $100 is a really good start. I'm trying to remember. Wasn't the Razor Crest destroyed? So what I to some extent that could make this more desirable, but to some extent it also could make it less desirable. And the reason I say it both ways, is that maybe Lego's not going to make more Razor Crests. Maybe this Razor Crest and like the midi-ish scale Razor Crests are going to be some of the last ones they do. Because even the new Mandalorian movie, there might be a new version of the Razor Crest. But if there's a new version of the Razor Crest, people might want the old version of the Razor Crest, ship. It might not be called the Razor Crest because obviously it's got its own name, but I'm kind of on the fence about that. Discounts. So the reason I have this like right in the middle is that it's been highly discounted. At the same time, we haven't seen a lot of discounts far from what it's been discounted on. For example, for the last year, it's pretty much been selling around 500. I haven't really been keeping an eye on this price, but to my knowledge, I haven't seen it at least for easily accessible price of lower than 4 or something like that. Of course, it retiring this year, maybe we'll see something, but given um, its quote exclusivity to Lego, um, I don't feel great about that. Its potential growth for almost all of these big sets, I keep the potential growth pretty low because, in my eyes, it's such a high risk because it's already an expensive set. People really, really, really need to want it to for it to grow by one, two, $300. And I personally don't see that happening. I think there's plenty of demand, but based on the numbers that we're seeing of how much people are willing to pay now, I don't see them being willing to pay even more after retirement or significantly more. That is worth the risk to me. Its collectability, I actually could potentially get moved up to here because, like I said, if this has um, been destroyed, it might, it certainly won't come back as a UCS, but it might not come back in any other form either. And with the four minifigures, it's actually fairly good. But given that, yeah, I'm gonna put the collectability like in here. Supply, I think, is going to be very high. I've never seen this set really go out of stock. Um, People are getting it at reasonable prices between 4 and 500 that I think it's probably going to fall in this category. Granted, I think there's a higher barrier to entry with these larger sets. You need to have the $400 or $500 to even secure it. So that makes the supply potentially lower, but I just think on a general scale, it's going to be very oversupplied. So that's going to put my overall ranking at a D, and that's mostly for my personal evaluation. I don't think it's like the absolute best value for the set. It's cool looking, but I think generally speaking, a lot of um, the original trilogy slash original six films, those ships tend to do better in retirement just because they're so timeless. Will there maybe be a kick when the Mandalorian movie comes out? Maybe. But it depends what ships are in there. And I don't recall when that's supposed to come out. So if you guys know when that's going to come out, that can certainly impact your decision. But I know for me, I personally will not be investing. It's just too much money up front, number one, and just the risk as well as trying to maintain the box, as well as potentially needing to ship it or trying to sell locally. And it just I've tried to sell things just over $100 and I've struggled locally. So I can't imagine having an even larger, excuse me, a larger set like that. So um, I hope you guys enjoyed this analysis. I kind of just rambled on a little bit about my thoughts on this, but I hope you found some use or insights that you may not have heard about or looked at. And I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this set. Of course, everything I do and say here is all opinion. There's no right or wrong way to really evaluate anything, but these are the main factors that I tend to consider on whether or not I think it's going to do well post retirement. And I think if you do believe that this might do well in retirement, you know, you really have to focus on your buy price. And like I said, the average buy price is probably about $500. So I would want to get it under 400 if I were trying to invest in the set. And I think that's going to be really hard. We haven't seen it go lower than that on Amazon. I I don't know if it was on higher discount before, but I just don't think people are going to be willing to buy this at that high of a price in the aftermarket. So I think that potential growth is really, really holding me back. So I give this a D. I will continue the series if you guys continue to like it. I enjoy kind of evaluating and talking about these Lego sets. I'm hoping to stray from Star Wars soon and just look at a bunch of um, different sets that are out there. And I'd really appreciate if you guys give this a like and follow if or like and subscribe, I suppose, if you're enjoying this content, so that I know that you guys want more of it. And hope to see you guys in the next video. Thank you for listening and have a good one. Bye.